Well, this one took its sweet time coming out, but regardless, the video is finally here, and let's not keep you waiting any longer. Welcome to the 8th volume already. Wow, these things sure fly. Of Archetype Rematch, and yeah, I'll be recording 2 volumes in a row of volume 8 and 9 because we have so many new cards that have turned up during this channel quarantine that I had. We even have 25 new cards in the volume 10, which is already under construction. So yeah, it's really a lot of stuff to catch up to. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and immediately go on to the first archetype that received some support, those being PREDAPLANTs, the subject of the second ever archetype analysis. And first off, we start off with the PREDAPLANT BYBLISP, I guess. Anyway, it's really good. It's a level 1, meaning it's searchable by WhereAreThou, and 1-for-1, it has a very easy searching effect, along with a very nice way of resummoning it should you ever need it again. So yeah, maxing out on this guy is highly recommended. And then we have the 2 new pendulum monsters. The first one being PREDAPLANT BUFOLLICULA. Yeah, BUFOLLICULA. Yeah, I think I got it right. Anyway, it's another scale 0, which is a pretty rare pendulum scale, honestly. And this one actually has a very decent effect, unlike Spider Orchid, if you remember from the archetype analysis. This is the second ever pendulum monster for the archetype, and yeah, it's essentially a fusion enabling card along the monsters such as Lunalight Wolf or Lunalight. So yeah, it's one of those pendulum monsters that is actually worth running, and even though its monster effect is not used very often, it's actually can be quite good on occasion to have it active. And in addition to that, this one also enables the usage of pendulum fusion in order to get some mileage out of using your pendulum PREDAPLANTs as material. Although that is something I would be saying if it wasn't for their other pendulum monster, which is PREDAPLANT TRIANTIS, which essentially replaces pendulum fusion in this archetype, seeing how its pendulum effect is literally pendulum fusion's passive effect. So yeah, the monster effect is also quite handy, as it's probably the most efficient way to spread the PREDAPLANT counters nowadays. So maxing out this guy is highly recommended. In addition to that, it's also a level 8 monster, meaning you can use Allure of Darkness and trade in for some additional draw power. Holy Jesus. Anyway, that is it for the main deck lineup. Then we have PREDAPLANT Ambromeridius, which is Ambromeridas, sorry. These names will be the death of me. Anyway, it's another very good monster. This is one being an archetypal target for instant fusion, which is fantastic. And you can get so much mileage out of just dropping instant fusion onto the field, which is really good. And not to mention the Orphrey Scorpio and the Darlingtonia Cobra engine can search out said instant fusion, so it's pretty good. You can also use Verte Anaconda in order to dump instant fusion directly from the deck in order to summon this thing, but come on, we all know what Verte Anaconda is for, right? Anyway, this one's good. Max out on it as soon as possible. Well, max out on it whenever you could run more than 1 instant fusion, that's what I meant to say. And then next up we have a very long overdue Starving Venemy Dragon, which is the manga counterpart to the Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. And yeah, if you remember on the very first archetype rematch, we had Starving Venemy Lethal Dose Dragon, which was an evolution of this card. So yeah, we have another number 5, Chaos number 5 situation here. But is the card worth running? Nope, not really, especially when you notice that he has the exact same effect as Lethal Dose Dragon, so no, not worth it, but at least we have them both now for all of you manga completionists out there. Yay. The boss monster you should be paying attention to is their final card for now, that being Starving Venom Predator Fusion Dragon, which is a evolution of Greedy Venom, I guess. seeing how Greedy Venom is an evolution of Starving Venom. Well, anyway, it's a very good boss monster with a soft once per turn Omni-Negate effect, which is really nice, and a very niche resummoning effect if you so happen to need it back. But yeah, it's a nice boss monster, although I wouldn't recommend maxing out on it, seeing how this extra deck space can actually how this archetype actually has some decent other monsters that they like to spend their extra deck space on. So yeah, I would say run one if you want, but it's not super necessary in the deck, if anything. Alright, and that was it for the PREDAPLANT, and now we have a few archetypes that only got one card worth of support, so I'll cycle through them pretty quickly. First up, we have LYRILUSC, which only got one card worth of support, which is a spell card LYRILUSC Bird Strike, which is an archetypal Dark Ruler no more, so need I say any more? Haha, humor. Then we have SPEEDROID Scratch, which is the new card SPEEDROID's got, which is an archetypal tuning, well, an archetypal Rhoda in general, so you obviously run 3 of these. Toy Parade is a new card that Fright first got, and it turns their monsters into Asura Priests, but it's not super necessary in the deck, so you only run 1 or 2 of these. Then the last one we have for now is Ice Knight, which is a new Monarch support card, and it only supports the Water Monarch monsters because the rest of them don't really need this kind of effect, since seeing how it was clearly engineered to adhere to the theming of you using the Water Monarchs. So yeah. Alright, now we move on to another archetype which got a whole bunch of new support. Those being Poker Knights of all things. Yeah, I never expected those to get some new support. But as far as that support go, you could clearly see that they were trying their absolute best to give them some sort of playstyle, or the lack thereof. For the lack thereof that they had before. First of which we have the Imperial Bower, which is a level 4 monster who is essentially a level 4 warrior Rhoda searchable monster, which acts as a double special summon from deck. So you obviously run 3 of these and never run any less than that. Then we have Injoker's Knight, which is essentially a replacement for any of the Poker Knights, so any of the main Poker Knights you so desire, for the cost of setting up your graveyard. And this thing copying the name of that monster you just sent to the graveyard, which in most cases I imagine is going to be Queen's Knight. And the second effect isn't too useful, but it can occasionally get the job done. So yeah, this is a definite 2-off staple, if not a 3-off staple in the deck. Then we have the Arcana Triumph Joker, which is the final monster of the archetype for now, at least. And it's the archetypal boss monster. What else can I say? If you're not running at least 2 of these, you're not playing Poker Knights. It's as simple as that. Then we have Face Card Fusion, which is their archetypal fusion card, meant to summon only 1 fusion monster as of this video. So I guess it's better than nothing, or instead of running the regular poly, yeah, of course, any archetypal fusion card is better than poly. I think we're slowly going into that age where literally every archetype that still has a fusion monster is going to get some sort of an archetypal fusion spell, because polymerization is very outdated, and we are slowly moving into that phase where it'll become outdated, and we will never be reprinting it for the purpose of supporting all fusion monster archetypes. Well, I guess maybe Luna Lights can still make some use out of it due to how much of a staple Black Sheep is. But anyway, I'm skimming off topic. We move on to the Joker Straight spell card, which is simply fantastic, and you should run 4 of these whenever you get the chance, which is never due to the game's rules. So you obviously run as much as you can, that being 3. It's simply giving you such a strong search power in the deck that barely had anything to do with anything, is really a masterpiece on its own. So yeah, obviously you run 3 of these. And then Thunderspeed Summon goes completely out the window with the perfectly sensible card design logic that the last card had, for the sake of providing some questionable combo material with Egyptian gods, which I'm not sure why they even made it into a thing. Yeah, don't run this. It's not even searchable by the archetype. Well, it actually it actually is, but for the sake of what this archetype is trying to do, it might as well not be. So yeah. And then that was our last spell card. Next up we have the trap cards, first of which we have Court of Cards, which is a decent backup in case you're very short on field presence effects, so this can actually kickstart your plays back up again. And if you're, for example, if your Joker gets negated or something, it can provide to be a decent thing to go into. But the downside it has, of course, is that it's a trap card, and you need to wait a turn in order to get the full use out of it. So it's not a hard staple or anything, but it's a decent one-off. And then Joker's Wild is actually a 2-off because it's essentially a second copy of Joker's Straight. So yeah, go for it. That card is just so good. It needs to have an additional copy of itself in your deck. See, you can run more than 3 copies. Who said you can't? Yeah, I did, but yeah, technically this is a different card, so yeah. And that was it for the Poker Nights. Honestly, I'm surprised that they even decided to give them attention, and the attention they got is actually quite good. I actually like the archetype now, as opposed to how much criticism I gave them in my original archetype analysis when they were just... how many cards were they? There were the original 3 Poker Knights, their fusion monster, the Link monster, which I completely forgot it existed up until now, and the Goddess Bow, which was a legendary dragon fusion, and that should speak for itself. And yeah, they really tried their best to give them a concrete playstyle, and I applaud them for it. So yeah, good job. The next bunch of warriors who actually got some new support are stars. Yeah, the stuff used by Kachidoki in Arc 5, and the first of which we have the Kaiser, the Funeral Star, who has the standard bunch of star effects that we've seen on all the other monsters, which is the summoning condition and the utility effect, which is unique to the one specific star monster in the archetype. And Kaiser's effect is a Foolish Burial effect, which is fine, but again, the archetype is so small, the archetype can't really take advantage of said effect. But the other card, Giant Starfall, is actually really funny in a way, as it's literally Idatan the Conqueror Star's effect, but engineered to a way that it can affect both Link and Xyz monsters now, which I assume was issued by Kachidoki himself to the Konami design team because of his past experiences and whatnot. But yeah, it's a really funny effect. I presume it can see some play in some star decks along with Idatan. So yeah, run if you feel like it, I guess. And that was it for the star archetype. And on to our next subject of interest for this archetype analysis, we have penguins. Yes, penguins have gotten quite a few cards worth to their arsenal. First of which we have Penguin Ninja, which is a very neat back row bouncer, and it can reset himself face down if necessary. So yeah, it's a very decent card to consider having in your penguin deck. And next up we have Penguin Priest, which has a very decent hand trap effect in order to recycle back your stuff and give them some nice attack point boosting. So yeah, Penguin Priest is a definite staple in the deck, although I wouldn't max out on it because it's a bit too self-destructive for my taste, because it relies on the opponent beating the shit out of you. But let's face it, playing penguins, that's gonna happen eventually, sooner or later. Plus, this thing can be searched with other stuff. So yeah, run in any amount you like. And then we have the last monster for now, which is Penguin Champion, which is honest to god fantastic. It literally sets up all of your penguin plays by himself, and well, it does require some setup, but it can actually produce some very nasty fields and very nasty plays. So yeah, it's also an archetypal tuner for that synchro monster that I've covered a few archetype rematches back. So yeah, great card. Then they have their archetypal equip, which is Penguin Sword, which is fine, but nothing too amazing. But the real kicker is the continuous spell Royal Penguin's Garden, which is an archetypal searcher for literally anything, and it also has some level modulation effect if you're doing something funny and with your penguins by making their synchro pool a lot more splashable and accessible to you. So yeah, this is another staple. And that was it for the penguins. It's pretty funny seeing how these things got support of all things. But yeah, penguins are turning up to be a bit of a... They're becoming stronger, which is honestly really nice to see, considering that what our archetypes of the day consist of, our meta archetypes of the day consist of. So yeah, I'm glad to see something like penguins getting support and attention here and there. It's a really good thing to see, you know. But anyway, I'm skimming off topic once again. Next up on the cutting room floor, we have the agents, well, or should I say the Sanctuary in the Sky archetype, because this covers a much more wider scope of cards rather than just agents. Although agents are the only ones of the many archetypes this mega archetype entails that actually got some support. So I'll be referring to them as agents. First of which we have the Agent of Life Neptune, which is a level 1 light monster, which has a very simple special summoning condition. Well, the special summoning condition for other agents, providing this thing is on the field, which is perfectly serviceable, seeing how it's a level 1 monster, thus it has some support in form of 1/1 or Vera, though. So yeah, it's not all bad, and it also has a very nice alternate effect if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, letting you summon some Hyperion monsters, and Hyperion monsters would only mean on the Master Hyperion, which is the card I covered in the archetype analysis, but the fact is that they actually got some other new Hyperion monsters in this support wave, so we'll be getting to them shortly. But then we have the Agent of Destruction Venus, which is essentially a 4th copy of the Agent of Creation Venus in your deck, because it actually has the exact same effects in the almost exact same manner as the old Venus, but this one works for the graveyard. And also, if you felt like you didn't get your mileage out of the Agent of Venus just yet, you can splash in another copy of this thing. This one is also a tuner if you ever so desire. So yeah, this is essentially a very nice combo extender and should be run at least 1 copy, because usually the original Venus can put in most of the work before this one steps in to finish the job. Then we have their last main deck monster for now, which is Majesty Hyperion, which is a dark counterpart to Master Hyperion, and this is one of the two new Hyperion monsters that have surfaced in this support wave. And it has a neat summoning condition. It basically mirrors Master Hyperion's summoning condition through its own little summoning condition as well. And it also has that funny Chthonian soldier kind of effect, where you also inflict your battle damage into the opponent if the opponent happens to be beating this thing with something stronger, which is not too rare, seeing how this thing only has 2100 attack, which is actually a very bad stat line for a level 8 monster, but its defense is pretty alright. So yeah, it's also a target for our Lure of Darkness and Tradens, so I guess it's not all bad to consider. Then we move on to their extra deck monsters, first of which we have the Executor of Hades Pluto. Finally, someone gave Pluto some justice. Anyway, it's a level 5 synchro monster with the Armada stats, if that means anything in today's world. I guess it does. It's always treated as an agent card because they had to go with that fancy name due to Pluto being special. And it's and it also has the Book of Moon effect, which is really lovely for an agent monster. It can actually prove to be quite useful, and if you happen to have the Sanctuary in the Sky on the field, it's literally a Book of Moon thing. It becomes a quick effect. So yeah, it's a very decent level 5, and I recommend running at least one of these guys in your agent deck. Then the other synchro monster they received is Master Flare Hyperion, which is a level 11. No, it's a level 10 monster. Sorry, I'm not good with counting stars. And it also has a very typical array of boss monster effects, as in you can ascend an agent monster or a monster that specifically lists the Sanctuary in its Sky in its text from your hand deck or extra deck to the graveyard. You can basically copy the name of the of whatever you need, essentially, for your situation, which is essentially both graveyard setup and toolboxing all in one card. So yeah, it also has a very impressive 3200 attacks, so it's very good. You should definitely run at least one of these in your agent deck because it's the definitive boss monster of the deck now. So yeah. And the final monster they received is the Guard of the Agent's Moon, which is a link monster that points right and bottom right. It's actually a very generic link 2 monster for the agents, as it only requires 2 fairy monsters. And it's specifically made to interact with the Agent of Mystery Earth, which is the archetypal tuner, well, one of the archetypal tuners, which is fine, I guess. And I guess they really wanted you to go into those new synchros because they are actually quite nice to use. So yeah, having a nice link to the play extender like this is always good to have around in any archetype. So I guess this one isn't out of place either. Now we only have their 3 spell traps, well, 2 spells and 1 traps to be perfectly precise. First of which we have the Sacred Water of the Sky, which is basically an additional copy of the Sanctuary in your Sky in your deck, and essentially replaces terraforming in your deck. Since this one is actually searchable and can activate the Sanctuary in the Sky directly from your deck on a normal spell, and it also lets you add stuff which mentions the Sanctuary in the Sky in your in the card text to your hand, so it's very good. It also has some synergy with Hyperion and the agent monsters in form of giving you life points for each one you control. And yeah, it also has a nice protection effect for your Sanctuary, so it's overall a very solid card. Their last spell is the Chorus in the Sky, which is an archetypal banish fetching recovery, and it can also fetch stuff from your graveyard if you do not have the Sanctuary. So it's a nice extension or recovery tool, so it's always welcome in the deck. So it's pretty good. It's also searchable, so why not? Always run at least 2 of these. And their final card is the Continuous Trap Lost Sanctuary, which is another replacement for the Sanctuary in the Sky, but this one being in trap form, although this one is a bit too slow for my taste to call it worthy successor to, well, the Sacred Water of the Sky, which literally activates it from the deck. So yeah, there are some other cards in the archetype that we've talked about before which can be capable of becoming the Sanctuary in the Sky, but it's not too good, so I would probably skip out on this one if I had the chance. So yeah, it can slow the deck by quite a lot, so I won't be talking about it for much longer. We're getting very close to the end. We have already passed the halfway point mark, and now it's time for the Utopia archetype, which is the next archetype that got some new support, starting with ASTRAL KURIBOH, which honestly is the Utopia support according to well, lore and everything, but its effect more synergizes with all of the other number monsters, which is a whole other support wave I'll be talking about in the, I think in the Archetype Rematch Volume 10 they're scheduled to appear, but we'll see. Yeah, it's a fine addition, but it barely feels like a Utopia support card. While Utopia Astral Hope, or Astraltopia as it's known now here in the TCG, is seeing how it's a swarming monster that can special summon itself, and it also acts as a foolish burial goods for the archetype and for the some other stuff which Utopia is unrelated to, such as the Xyz or number stuff. So yeah, it's a good card, and you should definitely run 3 of these. It's a free level 4 in an Xyz spam archetype. Need I say more? And then we have the ZS Utopic Sage, which is our final Utopia support card for now. It requires any two level 4 monsters, meaning it's completely generic, and it provides some very nice bonuses for all of you Zexal Weapon and ZS enthusiasts in the Utopia deck building community. So yeah, it's a nice supportive rank 4 to go in on an occasion, so it's not completely dead and without a use. Definitely run a few of these in your Utopia deck. And Contract of Destiny is not good, seeing how it's made to synergize with the Door of Destiny, which is a very gimmicky trap card to begin with, and as I already stated in the original archetype analysis, so I wouldn't bother with this one. And now we have another archetype which only received 1 card worth of support, that being the Machina archetype with Machina Ruin Force, which is basically an inverse of Machina Fortress, thus making it very synergetic with Machina Fortress, as it's a 4600 attack beatstick, which basically can summon itself by banishing the stuff Machina Fortress discarded to summon itself. So yeah, it's a very potent special summonable monster, and it's pretty generic as well, so it can also function like a machine version of an evil dragon Ananta. So yeah, this is a fantastic boss monster. What else can I say? And that was it for Machinas. Yeah, only 1 card worth of support. We've seen several archetypes so far, and we are not even done with the singular card worth of support in archetypes, seeing how we also have 1 more to go afterward. But next up we have the Dark Magician archetype. Yay! That archetype got some new support like expected. And we start off with another KURIBOH, that being MAGIKURIBOH, who is cosplaying as the Dark Magician. It's fine, although it's a bit too slow to activate, seeing how it specifically triggers on battle damage dealing. I guess you can trigger the battle damage yourself if you crash into something that's slightly stronger than your monsters, but it's so slow and self-destructive, so I wouldn't recommend it. But I guess running 1 in your side deck couldn't possibly hurt. So yeah. Chronicle Magician is interesting due to basically turning your Dark Magician into a 5k beatstick and being a free body which you can special summon, which he himself has 2500 attack and defense, and you can also be used as rank 7 material. So it's both good and bad at the same time. Good because of all the benefits it provides to you, and bad because it only specifically triggers on your Dark Magician summons and nothing else. So yeah, I mean, it's also barely searchable. Well, yeah, the Magical Circle can search it, or Dark Magician Circle. The continuous spell card, I'm not actually referring to the trap card, to the trap card which you can trigger during the battle phase. I'm actually referring to the continuous spell that Dark Magicians live and die for. So yeah, that can search it, but I guess in a more competitively heavy combo extending field, it's not that useful. But in a more aggressively battle oriented versions of the deck which heavily rely on stuff like Eternal Soul to function, this can actually be a pretty good addition, so I would highly recommend going for it in that build, and in any other if you can afford to run it for a few main deck spaces. Then we have TIMAEUS, the Dragon of Destiny, which essentially said, screw you, Eye of TIMAEUS, this is how we will be playing all the Dark Magician fusions from now on, as the card is literally just the TIMAEUS, which has become searchable by the Dark Magician archetype, which the previous card wasn't. So there's literally no way now and literally no reason to run any of the Legendary Dragon fusions now, because, well, they've essentially become outdated with the existence of this thing. And it also has a very unique, and not a unique, but a very reliant summoning condition and very good stats in that. So yeah, this is a fantastic card and you should definitely consider running it. And that was their last main deck non-ritual monster, as now we have the ritual monster Illusion of Chaos with a very interesting search and negation effect, to say the least. It's also a level 7 monster and can be summoned with Chaos form, so we have some of that sweet alternate ritual summoning condition synergy here. And the two unique effects that I mentioned can be pretty neat, especially the hand effect, which is the search effect that I mentioned, which is essentially you top deck something in order to search something else. So yeah, it's a fun little thing to experiment with. It's also searchable, so yeah, it's a nice card to consider having for at least 1 or 2 copies. Yeah. Anyway, that was our last main deck monster, and now we move on to their last monster period, which is the fusion monster Dark Master of Chaos, which is, other than Dragoon, the best fusion monster Dark Magicians have the potential to go into, as it requires Dark Magician and a Chaos or a Black Luster Soldier ritual monster. Now, I'm actually kind of confused about the second monster. Well, Blackluster Soldier Ritual Monster, you only have 2 options. The original vanilla Blackluster Soldier or the Blackluster Soldier Super Soldier, which is a improvement to say the least, but in terms of its actual effect, it pales in comparisons to some of the other Blackluster Soldier stuff we got over the years. But I'm actually wondering if the Chaos Monster, does it allow the Chaos Monster to be, for example, Levianeer? I really need to playtest if you can, for example, use Levianeer to summon this, because it will be kind of busted if you could actually use Levianeer to summon it. But you can also summon it by using TIMAEUS' effect, so yeah, you don't have to worry about the second monster requirement if you're running TIMAEUS, which you should, because it's a very good card. Then we have their new field spell, which is Magician's Salvation, which honestly provides some very good setup for the pure Dark Magician deck, so that you will be playing the most, I would imagine, as it essentially sets up your Eternal Soul plays into motion, and it also recovers your stuff upon them dying, so it's a very nice recyclable field spell and a support card overall to have around. Run 2 or 3 of these. And their final card is the Shatter the Darkness continuous spell, which provides some niche boosts, but the condition to actually pull out said boosts, that being applying the honest effect whenever your monster is attacking, is a bit out there, as the summoning procedure for, well, you need, as the monster procedure needed is a bit too demanding for this deck. Well, a bit too specific, not too demanding, but too specific for it to work. It's also a bit unsearchable by the archetype, so it's not worth running it more than 1 if you run it at all. And that was it for the Dark Magician archetype. And we only have a few more archetypes to go before we call this archetype rematch done. And before we move on to the archetype rematch volume 9 tomorrow. First of which we have Detonation Code, which is the only new support card for the Topologic archetype. and seeing how topologics are a tech archetype, and this provides some fine boosts, but nothing too amazing, and due to it not being searchable, I do not see this being present in many decks at all, if ever. So yeah, maybe if it were a proper archetype, yes, but as it is right now, not in the slightest. And that was it for, like I said, the only card the topologic got. And now we move on to Rockets, another one of Revolver's special friends in his deck. First of which we have Rocket Caliber, which is a special summonable tuner, which also gives you some other setup while he's doing said special summoning. And it also has very decent stats. It can be special summoned with quick launch as well. It's a Dark Dragon tuner, so yeah, it's looking pretty spiffy, if I may add. Although I wish its stats were a bit inversed, so you could use Cards of Consonance for additional draw power. But I think the archetype already has enough targets for those, so yeah. Or the deck if they're playing some tech options in it, so yeah. Their last main deck monster is Outburst Dragon, which is pretty kick-ass, if I dare say, because for the price of blowing up your entire field, well, or minimally one monster, you also get a free body, which you can use as a link summon material, and not to mention you can link summon during the opponent's turn with this thing, which is always appreciated. I love an archetypal IP Masquerina. In fact, you can use this to summon IP Masquerina, and then use IP Masquerina to summon something else, such as, for example, Avramax, Underworld Goddess, their own archetypal monsters. Really, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities which you can actually do with this thing. So yeah, it's also a level 8 dark monster, so Allure of Darkness and Trade in for Days, and yeah, great card overall. Which is sadly not the case with BORRELCODE Dragon, which is their new Link monster, their Link 3 monster to be precise, with Deco Talker arrows. I see what they did there. And yeah, it has the standard Borrel effects for Link monsters, although this one is not live very often due to the fact that its stat line isn't quite the best. Well, it's standard for a Link 3 monster, but in order to set up its utility of effects, it's a bit too demanding, as it specifically needs to have a Link monster pointing to it in order to gain some of its effects. So yeah, I've even heard people refer to this as being the worst Borrel monster ever made, even more worse than Borrel Guard Dragon. And yeah, when they say it like that, I think they kind of want to mean it when they say it like that. Anyway, that was their final monster, and their final card, period, is Reloaded Cylinder, which also retroactively makes Magic Cylinder the part of the archetype due to lore reasons. And yeah, it basically functions like the Mirror Launcher does for Mirror Force, and yeah, we all know what Magic Cylinder does, so we will just move on from here. Next up, we have another archetype which received 3 cards worth of support, and it's also the semi-final archetype we'll be covering in today's archetype rematch, those being Destiny Heroes. The first one being Destiny Hero Denier, who almost had a chance to be fine with its revival effect. Well, we'll be talking about the revival effect only because the first effect is kind of pointless. Updecking a D hero is not something this archetype likes doing, so I have no idea why this card would do it all of a sudden. But yeah, the revival effect could have been really good for the archetype, but they locked it into a once per duel effect for some reason, and I don't understand why. So yeah, needless to say, you just don't run this guy. But what we're really here for is their new fusion monster, Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, who I've seen people refer to as the new Dragoon. But honestly, I don't see it. I see it more like a new Scrap Dragon, if anything. I mean, yeah, it is a quick effect, and that can screw over quite a few decks if pulled off right, and it's probably the reason why they banned Fusion Destiny over at the OCG. But honestly, I would run Dragoon any day of the week over this thing. I mean, if you're a Destiny Hero player, then yeah, sure, go all out with this thing because it's actually really good. But other than that, wouldn't bother. Dragoon is the superior fusion monster in my opinion. Maybe if you're orienting it in regards to budget, but I do hear that Fusion Destiny can fetch a high price, so yeah. And their final card is Break the Destiny, which is a very niche kind of card which makes the opponent lose its main phase, and that's basically the entire extent of this thing's usefulness. But if the opponent has enough resources to do stuff outside of the main phase, then this thing is basically has the intimidation factor of the heart and the wind, which is something we're not looking for in competitive modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So we can all move on. And that was it for D heroes. Very small support wave, and yeah, they're the only hero type that actually gotten some new support. And now we move on to the final archetype of today's archetype rematch, which is the Reptilianne archetype. Starting with Reptilianne NYAMI, which is basically a non-tuner version of Reptilianne Lamia. And I honestly don't understand their logic of the new Reptilians that they're going for. They give them these really cool dual effects, well, two effects on one monster, and they only look at they've been doing this since Reptilianne Lamia, I want to say. These would be much better cards if you could actually allow the player to use them both on the same turn, to use both effects on the same turn. They would be so good, but the way they are right now, they have the potential to be very good. They are still good, don't get me wrong, but they have the potential to be even better. But that potential is not always guaranteed due to the opponent locking you into only one effect per turn. Then we have Reptilianne COATL, which is a level 4 monster, and this one can actually be a very potent field presence generator if you prepare your field beforehand, which is actually not that hard to do. So Reptilianne COATL is usually run at 2 or 3, along with some Ogdoatic playmakers in order to make the whole process blend in and fade in a lot easier. And then our final monster for today is the new Synchro monster they received, Reptilianne MELUSINE, which actually has a very funny and very interesting way to reduce the monster's attack to 0, as for the price of letting the monster's effects go through, it can make their attack 0, which can be a bit risky, seeing how some effects can legitimately screw you over if you let them go through. But this actually combines well with their new field spell, essentially making this thing into a very potent 0 attack generator, as well as a decent token generator, all thanks to the field spell Reptilianne RECOIL, which does all these nice things which I just described at Melusine sections. And yeah, being searchable is a huge plus due to their archetypal search options. Terraforming is a thing, so yeah, definitely you can definitely not afford to not run at least 3 of these. And our final card, and the final card for today's visit, we have the Reptilianne LAMIFICATION, which has such a disgustingly powerful array of search and support effects that it's actually not even funny. You can activate any of the 2 effects, any of the 3 effects printed here, but you can only pick from 2 of them. And usually you're going to be picking a monster search effect and the attack knocking down effect in order to make use of COATL's effect and even NYAMI on occasion, because if played right, you can actually get rid of unbeatable monsters such as Dragoon or the Blackluster Soldier Link monster. So yeah, the card is just that good, and you should never ever run any less than 3 of these. And we are done with today's archetype rematch. Whew, that took a hell out of me to record. But yeah, I'm finally halfway done with catching up to all the lovely Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta that has been piling up behind my back while I was just forced to sit back and watch while my channel disputes were taking place. Well, anyway, I'll see you all next time in Archetype Rematch Volume 9, where we'll have even more exciting support to dig through. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. See you soon for more BlitzBoxes and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. Be sure to check out my Patreon when you got the time. Maybe drop a few donations if you feel like it. And as usual, I'll upload the next video whenever I can. So see you all and have a good day. Peace.